The transport dock of the orbital training station was loud and cold. Metal walls echoed with heavy steps, sharp voices, and the low hum of machines that never slept. The station floated far from Earth, built by many species from many worlds. It was a place where strength, skill, and survival were tested without mercy. Among the new arrivals stood one human. He was not tall compared to most of the others. His body looked solid but plain. No extra arms. No thick armor plates. No glowing skin or sharp horns. He wore a simple gray training suit and carried a small bag over his shoulder. His face was calm, but his eyes watched everything. The human's name was Aaron. Around him stood trainees from different worlds. Some had long limbs and thin bodies. Some were wide and heavy, with hard skin. Others floated slightly above the floor, helped by small gravity tools attached to their belts. They spoke in low voices, sometimes pointing at the human and whispering. "This one is from Earth," one of them said softly. "Earth gravity is extreme," another replied. "How did he even survive childhood?" A third laughed. "He will break in the first test." Aaron heard none of it, or pretended not to. He stepped forward when a loud voice called all trainees to line up. The instructor walked into the hall with long, confident steps. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and narrow eyes. His uniform was sharp and dark, marked with symbols of rank and authority. He looked at the line of trainees like a hunter looking at weak prey. "I am Instructor Halvik," he said. His voice carried easily across the hall. "This station does not care where you come from. It does not care about your world, your stories, or your pride. You either adapt or you leave." His eyes stopped on Aaron. Halvik tilted his head and smiled in a way that was not friendly. "And we have a human," he said loudly. "From Earth." Several trainees turned their heads. A few smirked. Halvik walked closer until he stood directly in front of Aaron. "So," the instructor said, looking him up and down, "you come from a high-gravity world. That is what humans always say, yes?" "Yes, sir," Halvik chuckled. "Gravity does not make strength. It only makes pain. You survived because your world had no choice. But here, survival is earned. Most of you train under light gravity. This station adjusts to match your limits. Humans," he paused and looked back at Aaron, "are always proud of their gravity. They think it makes them special." A few trainees laughed openly. Aaron kept his hands at his sides. His jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. Halvik stepped back and raised his hand. The floor beneath the trainees shimmered faintly. "Training begins now," the instructor said. "Basic movement test. Walk across the floor. That is all." Several trainees moved easily. Some floated, others walked with long, smooth steps. Aaron took one step forward. The gravity hit him instantly. His body felt heavier than before, much heavier. The station's gravity field pressed down hard, stronger than standard Earth gravity. Aaron felt it pull at his muscles, his bones, his lungs. His boots felt like they were sinking into the floor. He paused for half a second. Halvik noticed. "Oh?" the instructor said loudly. "Already struggling?" Aaron took another step. His muscles adjusted. His breathing slowed. His body remembered years of weight, work, and strain. Farms under open sky, steel tools, long days. Gravity was not new to him. The floor beneath his foot made a quiet sound, a soft creak. Aaron continued forward, Halvek frowned slightly. Gravity increase, he said calmly. The pressure grew stronger. Some trainees stumbled. One fell to a knee and was quickly pulled aside by a hovering drone. Aaron felt sweat form at his neck. His shoulders tightened. His steps became slower, but they did not stop. Each step pressed harder into the floor. The creaking sound grew louder. A thin line appeared beneath Aaron's boot. A crack. One of the trainees gasped. "Is the floor damaged?" "Ah, that is impossible," another whispered. The training floor was designed to handle machines, armored units, and heavy species. No organic being was supposed to leave marks like that. Halvek's eyes narrowed. "Stop," he ordered. Aaron stopped. "Go." The crack remained. Halvek walked closer, crouching to look at the floor. His fingers traced the thin break in the surface. His expression changed from amusement to irritation. "You are using improper force," he said. "You are tensing too much." Aaron looked at him. "I am only walking, sir." Halvek stood up slowly. "Confidence," he said coldly, "is common in weak species." He turned to the control panel at his wrist. "Reset floor," he ordered. The surface smoothed over. The crack vanished. Halvek looked back at Aaron with a sharp smile. "Again," he said. Aaron returned to the line. The other trainees stared at him now, some with confusion, some with fear, some with new interest. He took a breath. He stepped forward again, stronger than before. This time, Halvek did not announce it. The pressure pushed down like a heavy hand. Aaron's knees bent slightly. His boots pressed deep into the floor. His heart beat faster. He focused on balance, on posture, on control. He took another step. The floor groaned. A louder sound this time. A visible dent formed beneath his foot. Silence filled the hall. Halvek's smile vanished. "That is enough," the instructor said sharply. Aaron stopped again. "You think this proves something?" Halvek snapped. "Strength without control is failure." Aaron met his eyes. "Then test my control." A murmur spread through the trainees. Halvek stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. "Very well," he said. "You want a test?" He raised his hand. "Prepare the training hall," he ordered. "Human class evaluation." A warning light flashed briefly, then turned off. Even heavier, several trainees cried out and collapsed. Drones moved in quickly, lifting them away. Aaron felt his body protest. Muscles burned, his spine compressed, his lungs worked harder. But he did not fall. He planted his feet. The floor beneath him cracked again, faster this time. Thin lines spread outward like broken glass under ice. Halvek's eyes widened. "That setting is not meant for organic trainees," an assistant instructor said nervously. Halvek did not answer. Aaron took one more step. The crack widened. A deep sound echoed through the hall. The training floor sank slightly. A full fracture formed under his weight. Alarms flickered on the walls, but did not sound yet. Aaron stopped, breathing hard. Sweat dripped from his face. His muscles trembled, but he remained standing. He looked down at the broken floor. Then he looked up. The hall was silent. No one laughed now. No one spoke. Halvek slowly lowered his hand. The instructor's voice was quiet when he finally spoke. "End test," he said. The gravity eased. Aaron felt the pressure lift. His body relaxed slowly, carefully, like a coiled spring releasing. The broken floor remained. The crack was deep and real. The station itself seemed to pause. For the first time since arriving, Aaron allowed himself a small breath of relief. Around him, the trainees stared, not with mockery, with uncertainty, and with something new. Respect. The human, Aaron, stood quietly on the fractured training floor. The crack beneath his boots stretched wider than anyone had expected. The hall, which had moments ago been filled with mocking laughter and whispers, now held only a tense silence. Trainees and instructors alike looked at him with disbelief. He had not fallen, he had not faltered, and yet the floor itself had begun to betray its design. Instructor Halvek paced slowly in front of him, his pale blue skin tight with irritation. He tapped a clawed finger against his wrist control panel, adjusting the gravity settings once more. The human had survived the first test, but Halvek was determined to show that humans were fragile, weak, and not fit to compete with the station's elite species. "Very well, human," Halvek said, his voice carrying across the hall like a cold wind. "You survived the first step. Now we will see if Earth muscles can survive sustained pressure." His breathing was steady, his eyes focused on the next step ahead. He felt the pressure of the station's gravity begin to rise again. His boots pressed deeper into the cracked floor. Each muscle in his legs and back protested, but his body remembered years of labor, of long days on solid ground under the unyielding pull of his home planet's gravity. Around him, the other trainees struggled. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms collapsed as gravity increased. A floating creature normally unaffected by such pressure hovered erratically before being gently caught by a hovering drone. A few others gritted their teeth and tried to keep moving, but the strain was visible in every tremble, every labored breath. Aaron's gaze stayed fixed on the path ahead. He took a careful step forward, testing the floor beneath him. The crack deepened, spreading like a river of weakness through the reinforced panels. He could feel it give slightly under his weight, but his body adapted. He had been trained for endurance in ways the station's elite did not understand. Halvek's expression darkened. He had expected the human to collapse, to grovel, or to beg for relief. None of that had happened. The other instructors exchanged nervous glances, whispering among themselves. "Increase the pressure again," Halvek commanded. "Let us see if the human can remain standing when the limits are truly tested." The gravity intensified. Aaron felt it press down with the weight of mountains. His muscles burned, sweat ran down his forehead and neck. His lungs worked harder with every breath. The floor beneath him groaned and creaked under the strain, but Aaron did not falter. He adjusted his stance, lowering his center of gravity, bending his knees slightly, and planting his feet more firmly. The other trainees watched with wide eyes. Many had never seen an organic being withstand this level of stress without external support. Some whispered to each other, questioning everything they had believed about humans. A thin line appeared beneath Aaron's left foot. The floor had begun to crack further, faint at first, then wider and deeper with each movement. Halvek stepped closer, frowning. "You are damaging station property," he said sharply. "Do you realize what you are doing?" "I am only standing, sir," Aaron replied calmly. Halvek's jaw tightened. He had expected excuses, complaints, maybe even tears. Instead, the human spoke with quiet certainty. He did not flinch, did not beg, did not attempt to justify himself. The calmness only made Halvek more furious. Then let us test control, Halvek said, raising his hand. Pick up that standard weight. It is not heavy by station standards, but for a human. He stopped, his voice faltering slightly. It should be impossible. It was a block of dense metal, designed to be lifted by mechanical exosuits or the strongest species on the station. The human stepped forward without hesitation. Every trainee froze, watching him. His hands gripped the metal block. His fingers flexed, muscles coiling like springs. The floor creaked loudly beneath the sudden concentration of weight. Small chips fell from the panel where the block pressed down. A sharp sound echoed in the hall. Aaron lifted it slowly, steadily, with controlled effort. His arms shook slightly, but he did not drop the weight. The floor beneath him protested with a deep, resonant crack. Dust and fragments fell into the air. Halvek's eyes widened. He had never seen a human move like this. No one had. The instructors murmured among themselves, their confidence shaken. Impossible, one whispered. Not for a human, another replied, barely audible. Aaron adjusted the weight, keeping it balanced. He took a step forward. The floor groaned and cracked further under the combined strain of his body and the metal block. Lines spread outward, intersecting like the veins of stone under immense pressure. The trainees were silent. Some could hardly breathe as they realized the limits of what they had assumed about humans. Halvek's authority seemed to weaken under the weight of the evidence. The human walked slowly across the hall, each step deliberate. His movements were smooth, controlled, precise. Every crack in the floor echoed with the sound of disbelief. Halvek called out sharply, "Stop! End the exercise!" Aaron did not stop immediately. He slowed, but did not kneel or surrender. He placed the weight down gently, steadying it so that the floor did not collapse entirely. He stood upright, breathing hard, sweat dripping from his brow, but in complete control. The hall fell silent. No one moved. The other trainees looked at Aaron not with pity or amusement, but with awe and fear. They had watched the impossible happen right before their eyes. A human had not only endured impossible gravity, but had also lifted a weight that should have crushed him and damaged the training floor. Halvek's voice was quieter now, almost lost in the hum of the station. You survived, but this is only the beginning." Aaron did not respond. He only nodded slightly and allowed his body to recover from the strain. He had proven something, but he knew the real tests were still ahead. The station was full of challenges far beyond simple strength tests. Endurance, strategy, adaptability, everything would be harder than this. A quiet murmur spread through the trainees. Some whispered about human resilience. Some asked questions in disbelief. Some made bets on whether Aaron could survive the next exercise. Halvek turned to the control panel at his wrist, pressing buttons to prepare the next round. His confidence was shaken. He had underestimated the human's capacity to endure. He had assumed pride alone would lead to failure. Instead, he had seen skill, control, and something he could not understand. Aaron stepped back from the floor, allowing the cracks to cool and settle. He had not been reckless, but he had pushed the limits. The instructors would remember this. The trainees would remember this. The human from Earth had made his mark, literally on the station. Halvek spoke again, louder this time. "Prepare the hall for the endurance test. This human has shown strength, yes, but can he survive when the station itself becomes the challenge?" The other trainees looked at each other nervously. Many had faced extreme conditions, but nothing like what they had just witnessed. A few whispered about Earth gravity, wondering if the human's world had secretly forged him into something more than they had imagined. Aaron waited silently. He knew the next challenge would push him even harder. The station's gravity, the weights, the floor, and the rules were only the beginning. He had survived the first real trial. He had proven that a human could endure, could adapt, and could challenge expectations. The instructors prepared the hall. Gravity fields shifted subtly. Machinery hummed in readiness, and the weight of the next exercise loomed like a shadow. The human remained calm, steady, and ready. Every eye followed him. Every mind calculated whether he would succeed or fail next. Aaron breathed slowly, focusing on balance and control. The floor beneath him, though cracked and battered, held his weight. The lessons of Earth, the constant, unyielding gravity, the long hours of work, the unbroken routines of survival had prepared him for this moment. Halvek stepped back, watching carefully. The other instructors whispered among themselves, some in fear, some in reluctant admiration. They had not seen a human like this before. They had underestimated him, and the human, standing quietly on the fractured floor, knew he had already begun to change the way everyone here would see his species. The next challenge was about to begin, and the hall waited in tense anticipation. His body was ready. The human from Earth had survived the first trial, and now the station itself would learn what he was truly capable of. The cracks on the floor gleamed under the overhead lights, a silent testimony to strength, control, and the beginning of a legend. The training hall was quiet after the first test, but the calm was only a thin veil over the tension that hung in the air. Aaron stood alone on the fractured floor, his chest heaving slightly from the strain of the previous exercise. The cracks beneath his feet were still visible, jagged lines that ran across the reinforced panels like the scars of a battle. The other trainees watched him from a distance, their expressions mixed, some curious, some fearful, some reluctant in admiration. None moved forward. Instructor Halvek walked slowly along the edge of the hall, his eyes sharp and calculating. His blue skin glimmered faintly under the overhead lights, his narrow eyes fixed on the human. He had underestimated him once. That would not happen again. "Human," Halvek said, his voice cold but measured. "You survived the floor test. But now we will see if you can survive when the challenge is not just strength, but endurance and control." Aaron did not respond. He simply adjusted his stance and waited. He had already learned that speaking first did not matter. Actions spoke louder, and he was ready to show the truth of human resilience once again. The hall's gravity systems shifted slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. The floor beneath the trainees hummed with energy, subtle vibrations that sent chills through the bodies of those around. For most, this was just a prelude, a minor adjustment. For Aaron, it was a familiar pressure. He had grown up under constant gravity, working long hours, carrying heavy loads, running through uneven terrain. His body remembered. Halvek raised his hand and signaled. The gravity increased, this time gradually and without warning. Several alien trainees faltered almost immediately. Their legs buckled, their lungs strained under the heavier pull. Drones hovered near, ready to lift any who fell, but Aaron stood firm. He felt the pressure pressing down like a weight that tried to bend his bones and crush his muscles. He did not flinch. He did not sway. A small tremor ran through the floor beneath him. The previous cracks, already weak, began to spread further. Aaron felt each line like a pulse beneath his boots, but he adjusted, moving carefully, redistributing his weight with every step. Instructor Halvek frowned, a rare break in his usually confident expression. "Impossible," he muttered under his breath. No human should withstand this. Aaron took a deliberate step forward. The floor groaned under him, a loud creak that echoed through the hall. Dust and fragments rose from the fractures. floating briefly in the low-gravity environment before settling. The other trainees watched, wide-eyed and silent. Halvek's assistant instructors whispered among themselves, "He is not just strong. He is different." "Yes," another said, voice low. "He moves like he belongs to a world that forged him from hardship. This is not ordinary strength. This is endurance beyond comprehension." He focused entirely on balance, on the subtle shifts in the gravity field, on the vibrations of the broken floor beneath his feet. Each step was measured, each movement deliberate. His body adapted with every second, every ounce of pressure. The instructor stepped closer, raising the gravity even more. The pressure now was intense. Some trainees collapsed immediately, their bodies unable to cope. The floor beneath Aaron groaned under the combined strain of the gravity and his weight. Cracks spread wider, lines crossing in chaotic patterns. Dust clouds rose around his boots, and small panels began to bend slightly under his grip on the floor. Aaron bent his knees, lowered his center of gravity, and pushed upward with all his strength. The floor cracked again, a loud fracture sound that made several instructors step back in alarm. The human had not only survived the gravity but had imposed his will on the very floor beneath him. Halvek's voice rang out sharply. "And the test." Aaron did not stop. He slowed, yes, but he did not kneel. He did not beg for mercy, and he did not falter. Each step he took pressed the floor further, each movement demonstrating control, endurance, and the unyielding power of his body. One of the assistant instructors whispered, almost in awe, "He is shaping the floor beneath him. The structure itself yields, and yet he does not fall." "How?" Halvek did not answer. His mind raced. He had studied the human species, observed them, mocked them. He had expected weakness. Instead, he saw a being capable of enduring impossible strain, capable of using control and focus to adapt to conditions no one else could survive. Aaron felt his muscles burning, his lungs working harder than ever, yet he remained composed. His body remembered Earth, remembered long days of labor, remembered the gravity that had trained him without mercy. Every part of him screamed with effort, but he did not yield. The floor groaned, cracks widened, and the air seemed to vibrate with tension. A trainee from a distant world, normally composed and confident, whispered to another, "Look at him. He is not just strong. He is unbreakable." The other trainee nodded slowly. "Earth gravity must have done something we cannot understand. No human should survive this." Aaron's steps continued, slow and measured. Each move pressed the broken panels further, bending the metal slightly, fracturing it deeper. Halvek's assistants grew nervous. The hall's emergency systems began to prepare for structural failure, sensing the unusual strain. Halvek's voice cut through the murmurs. "Stop him! Gravity at this level should break him." Aaron did not stop. He adjusted his stance, distributing weight evenly, maintaining perfect balance. His muscles screamed. Sweat ran down his neck and back, but he pressed onward. The floor beneath him creaked, split, and groaned with each step. Dust and fragments fell from the ceiling as the structure trembled slightly, yet the human moved forward, unwavering. The other trainees were frozen, staring with wide eyes. Some had never seen anyone endure such strain. Some whispered prayers or words of encouragement under their breath, but none dared approach. They knew the human was in a league entirely separate from their own. Halvek's jaw tightened. He had authority, he had power, and he had control over the environment. Yet none of it mattered against this human. Aaron's body, forged by constant gravity and hard labor on Earth, had adapted to pressure that was meant to destroy him. Every ounce of strength was backed by endurance and control, something the other species did not fully grasp. Aaron felt the floor shift beneath him again. The cracks widened, and he could see the panels bending slightly under his weight. He pressed down firmly, balancing the strain, and continued forward. The instructor watched, stunned into silence, as the human's movements demonstrated a combination of precision, strength, and endurance unlike anything seen before. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Aaron reached the center of the hall. He stopped, and slightly to catch his breath, and placed his hands lightly on the floor, testing its stability. Dust and small fragments fell around him. The broken panels had shifted under his passage, leaving a web of fractures that spread outward in all directions. The hall was silent, not a sound except for the faint hum of the station's machinery. Even the drones hovered quietly, as if observing the impossible human. The other trainees were frozen, their whispers gone, their eyes wide with disbelief and respect. Halvek stepped forward, his voice tight. "You survived again. You have endurance that no human, or perhaps no being, should possess. Yet here you are, standing." Aaron nodded slightly. He did not boast. He did not speak further. The proof was clear. The cracks on the floor, the trembling panels, and the gasps of every observer were proof enough. The assistant instructors whispered among themselves, "This changes everything. We cannot underestimate humans." "Indeed," another replied, "they are not just survivors. They are extraordinary." Halvek's eyes burned with a mixture of anger and reluctant respect. He had expected to show the weakness of Earth's humans, to humiliate them. Instead, he had witnessed something that challenged every assumption he had ever held. Aaron stood quietly, his chest heaving, muscles trembling, yet calm in spirit. The hall, the gravity, the fractured floor, none of it had broken him. He had proven endurance, control, and resilience beyond anything the instructors had anticipated. Halvek raised his hand again, signaling the next phase. "Prepare the hall for the next test," he said, his voice unusually measured. "If the human has survived this, let us see if he can survive when the challenge involves not just strength and control, but strategy under strain." The trainees looked at each other nervously. The whispers spread quickly. Humans were not just strong. They were capable of enduring conditions that others could not. Even Halvek's authority seemed diminished, weakened by the undeniable proof of the human's abilities. Aaron focused on his breathing, steady and calm. He knew the next test would push him even further. The floor beneath him, fractured and weakened, was a reminder that the station itself would be a test. The cracks spread like the marks of defiance, a record of endurance that no one could erase. The hall prepared for the next phase, gravity fields shifting subtly, machinery humming in anticipation, and instructors exchanging nervous glances. Aaron remained calm, composed, and ready. The human from Earth had survived the endurance test, and now every observer understood that his species could not be dismissed or underestimated. The fractures in the floor beneath him gleamed under the lights, each line a silent testament to strength, control, and the beginnings of a legend. Aaron knew the station would push harder, but he was ready. He was a human, and humans had survived far worse than this. The training hall was tense. Every panel, every crack in the floor, and every light seemed to wait for what would happen next. Aaron stood on the fractured floor, muscles still sore from the endurance test, but his body remained steady. His breathing was controlled. his posture perfect. The other trainees watched from the edges, silent, some unable to hide fear, others admiration. Instructor Halvek's eyes burned with frustration. He had expected the human to break, to collapse under the strain of gravity and floor damage. Instead, Aaron had survived. He had moved with control, endurance, and strength that no one else had ever shown in this hall. Enough of tests with light weights and controlled pressure, Halvek said, his voice tight. We will now test the human under conditions that no species here should survive. If he endures this, we will know that Earth has created something extraordinary. Aaron did not speak. He did not flinch. He knew what was coming, and he had already adapted to far worse pressures in his life. Every step on Earth had prepared him for this. The cracks in the floor beneath his boots reminded him that control and endurance were more important than brute strength. Halvek activated a series of controls at his wrist panel. Gravity shifted immediately, stronger than any human had ever experienced. The pull pressed down with a force that bent even the reinforced panels slightly. The floor beneath Aaron groaned and trembled. Dust rose from the cracks in clouds, floating slowly in the low-gravity environment of the hall. Several trainees collapsed almost instantly. Their bodies were not built for this pressure. Drones hovered over them, moving them aside with careful precision, but their failure was evident. A floating alien struggled to maintain control, its normally effortless movements turning awkward under the increasing weight. Aaron's boots pressed into the cracked panels. His muscles burned. Every joint screamed. His lungs worked furiously, but his body adapted. He adjusted his stance, lowering his center of gravity, redistributing his weight with precise movements. The cracks beneath him deepened, splitting further, but he remained standing. Halvek's assistants whispered nervously, "He should be on the ground by now." "Yes," another said. "He is moving under impossible conditions. Look at the floor. He is bending it, breaking it, and yet he does not fall." Aaron bent his knees slightly, planting his feet firmly as the gravity pressed down. His breathing was steady, controlled. Every movement was deliberate. He lifted a small training weight from the floor, a dense block of reinforced metal meant for mechanical exosuits. Normally, no organic trainee could lift it under normal gravity. Under this pressure, most would collapse immediately. Aaron's muscles coiled, his fingers gripping the block tightly. He lifted it slowly, carefully, keeping perfect control. The floor groaned under the combined strain. Cracks widened, dust and fragments falling from the panels. The other trainees stared in disbelief. Some whispered quietly. Some shook their heads. None could approach. Halvek's jaw tightened. "Impossible," he muttered. "No human should survive this. No human should even lift that weight under normal gravity." And yet, Aaron moved forward. His steps were slow, deliberate, precise. The floor creaked, split further, and trembled under his passage. The block in his hands did not slip. His body remained steady. Sweat ran down his face and neck, yet he did not falter. Every eye in the hall followed him, a mixture of fear, awe, and disbelief etched into their expressions. Halvek signaled for the gravity to increase again. The pressure now was immense. The floor beneath Aaron groaned loudly. Cracks spread outward like spider webs, lines intersecting in chaotic patterns. Dust and small fragments fell from the ceiling as panels bent slightly under the strain. Aaron adjusted. He bent his knees further, lowered his center of gravity, shifted his weight. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned, yet he moved forward with control. The human body, forged under Earth's unyielding gravity, adapted naturally. Every step was a calculation of force, endurance, and balance. The other trainees whispered among themselves, "He's bending the very floor," one said. "The station itself cannot hold him." Halvek's face was pale. He had authority over the station, control of gravity fields, and access to the most advanced technology, yet none of it seemed to matter. Aaron's body, trained under conditions no one here understood, had adapted. The human was not just enduring. He was imposing his will on the hall itself. Aaron's eyes scanned the floor. He could feel the cracks beneath him, the vibrations through the panels. Each step pressed harder. Each movement widened fractures. He lifted the block higher, testing his balance. The floor groaned audibly, and small sections shifted slightly under his weight. The assistants whispered urgently, "We need to stop him. The floor cannot hold much longer." Halvek's voice was sharp. "Do not intervene. Let us see what he can do. If he falls, it will be proof of failure. If he stands, it will be proof of—" "What, exactly?" Aaron continued. His steps were steady, controlled, precise. The floor beneath him was damaged, groaning under the strain. Cracks ran in all directions, yet he remained upright. He adjusted constantly, redistributing weight, keeping balance, maintaining perfect control. The gravity reached extreme levels. Some trainees were already being carried away by drones. Their bodies could not survive the pressure. Aaron's muscles burned. His chest heaved with exertion. Sweat dripped freely. His joints ached. Yet he moved forward, lifting the block, stepping carefully, controlling every ounce of force he exerted. The floor cracked further, panels bending and splitting. Dust and debris floated in the low-gravity environment. The sound of metal creaking filled the hall. Every instructor and trainee watched in silence. Awe and fear etched into their faces. Finally, Aaron reached the center of the hall. He paused, catching his breath, placing the block on a slightly damaged section of the floor. Dust fell around him. The floor groaned, cracked lines spreading outward, but he remained standing. Every muscle in his body was burning, yet he was in complete control. The hall was silent, the broken floor beneath him, the dust in the air, and the trembling panels were all proof of the human's endurance and strength. The other trainees were frozen, staring in disbelief. Halvek stepped forward slowly, his voice low. You
survived again."
Endurance, strength, control, beyond what we thought possible. This, human, is extraordinary. Aaron nodded slightly. He did not speak. The cracks, the groaning floor, and the awe around him were enough. The human from Earth had survived extreme gravity, lifted impossible weight, and controlled his movements perfectly, under pressure no being should endure. The assistants whispered among themselves, "We cannot underestimate humans again." Halvek's face was tense. He had expected to humiliate this human. He had expected failure. Instead, he had witnessed endurance, skill, and control beyond imagination. Aaron adjusted his stance, feeling the floor beneath him settle slightly. He had survived. He had proven human resilience. And he knew the station would continue to test him, but he was ready. The next challenge would come, and he would meet it, as he had every obstacle before, with focus, control, and the unyielding strength of a human forged by gravity itself. The fractures in the floor glimmered under the overhead lights, silent testimony to the impossible strength of Earth's humans. Aaron breathed steadily, preparing for the next stage, ready to show that no challenge, no pressure, and no force in the station could break him. The instructors waited. The station itself seemed to pause, acknowledging the endurance of the human who had cracked the floor and refused to fall. Aaron's eyes were calm, his body was ready, and the station was about to witness something no one had ever imagined. A human not only surviving but dominating the test, leaving a permanent mark on the floor and the minds of all who watched. The training hall was quiet after the extreme endurance test. Dust hung in the air, drifting slowly under the low-gravity lights. Cracks ran across the floor, deep lines that had never been seen before. The panels groaned faintly under their own strain, but they had held. Aaron stood at the center, muscles trembling, sweat dripping from his brow, yet perfectly upright. His chest heaved with exertion, but his eyes were calm, steady, and focused. Around him, the other trainees whispered in low voices. Many of them had failed under far less pressure. Some had nearly broken under the previous tests. Now they watched, wide-eyed, as the human stood where no one else could. Fear, disbelief, and a hint of respect mingled in their expressions. Instructor Halvek's face was pale, his lips pressed into a thin line. He had expected to humiliate this human, to show the trainees the weakness of earthborn beings. Instead, he had witnessed something no one could deny: control, endurance, and strength beyond the limits of imagination. "Human," Halvek said finally, his voice tight, "you have survived extreme conditions that would crush nearly any other being here. You have shown control, strength, and endurance. But do you understand what this means?" Aaron's breathing slowed slightly. He had no need to speak yet. His actions had already spoken for him. He simply nodded. Halvek's assistant instructors murmured among themselves. "He has changed the hall," one said softly. "Not just the floor, but the way we see humans. He has proven something extraordinary. We cannot underestimate them ever again." At that moment, the station commander entered the hall. The massive doors swung open silently, and a figure in a dark uniform stepped forward, eyes scanning the scene. The commander was a tall being with armored plating, a calm demeanor, and an air of authority that made the entire hall pause. He had heard rumors of a human who had survived the impossible, but seeing it firsthand was different. He approached slowly, observing Aaron standing at the center of the fractured floor. Dust floated around them, the lights reflecting off the jagged cracks. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied the human. Halvek stepped aside, his hands raised slightly in a gesture of explanation. "Commander, this is the human from Earth. He has completed the endurance tests, survived extreme gravity, and controlled his movements under conditions no other species has endured. The floor itself has been damaged, but he has not fallen. He has proven that humans cannot be underestimated." The commander studied Aaron for a long moment. He could see the sweat on his brow, the trembling muscles, and the calm focus in his eyes. He could see the cracks beneath his boots, the evidence of the impossible strength and control he had shown. "You are the human from Earth," the commander said finally, his voice low but firm. "I have heard stories, but I did not believe them until now." Aaron nodded slightly.
"Yes, sir."
"I am Aaron." The commander's eyes swept across the hall, observing the other trainees. Many had failed the extreme gravity test. Some had collapsed. Some were shaken but standing. All of them had watched the human endure what none of them could. The commander turned his gaze back to Aaron. "You have done more than survive."
"You have changed the way this station views humans. Your species is no longer a curiosity or a subject of ridicule."
"You have proven your worth in strength, endurance, and control." He had expected respect after the tests, but he did not expect it to come from the commander so quickly. He had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words. Standing upright, steady, and unbroken under impossible strain was enough. Halvik's face was tight with anger and reluctant admiration. He had trained and studied these species for decades. He had believed himself capable of predicting every outcome. And yet, this human had shattered every expectation. The commander stepped closer, examining the cracks in the floor. "These fractures are evidence," he said. "Evidence that a human can endure forces that would destroy others. You have earned respect, not just from your instructors, but from the entire station." Aaron nodded again.
Thank you, sir.
"I only did what I could." The commander's eyes softened slightly. "It is more than enough. Your demonstration will be recorded. All trainees will be informed of your endurance. Your actions will change the rules of training for humans and may influence the way other species are trained as well. You have set a new standard." The assistant instructors whispered among themselves, "This is unprecedented. Never has a human influenced station protocols this quickly." Halvek's hands clenched at his sides. He had tried to humiliate the human. He had tried to show the trainees the limits of Earth-born beings. Instead, he had witnessed a human redefine them. "You will be allowed to rest, but your next test will be more complex. It will involve strategy, endurance, and control combined. We will see how a human performs when the environment itself becomes an obstacle." Aaron straightened, nodding. He had already endured extreme strength and gravity. He had proven control over his body and focus under impossible strain. The next test would challenge him in other ways, but he was ready. The trainees around him whispered among themselves, awe and fear mixing in their voices. Some had expected to see a weak species crumble. Instead, they had witnessed endurance and strength far beyond their understanding. Some even stepped closer, seeking to learn from his posture, his breathing, his calm focus. Halvek muttered under his breath, "A human, of all things. To change the way the station sees strength, endurance, and control? Impossible." The commander nodded. "This human has shown that adaptability and resilience are as important as strength. We must adjust protocols. The species from Earth is no longer a subject for mockery. They are worthy of study and respect." Aaron remained silent. Words were not necessary. The evidence lay in his body, the fractures in the floor, and the awe in the eyes of those who watched him. Halvek took a step back, realizing his position had changed. He was no longer just an instructor giving orders. He was an observer of something extraordinary. A human had survived where others could not. A human had endured where others would have fallen. A human had commanded respect through action alone. The commander turned to the hall. "Let all trainees observe. Let them learn. A human has proven that limits can be surpassed through discipline, control, and endurance. Let this demonstration be a lesson to all." The other trainees shifted, some nodding slowly, some still in disbelief. They had come to the station with arrogance, confidence in their own species, but now they saw something new. They saw a human who could endure impossible conditions, who could remain in control under extreme pressure, and who could redefine expectations with calm focus and determination. Aaron felt a small sense of pride, but it was quiet. He had not come here to impress or to dominate. He had come to survive, to endure, and to show that humans, forged under unyielding gravity and hardship, could meet any challenge. The cracks in the floor beneath his boots were a reminder of what he had achieved. They were evidence of endurance, strength, and control. They were proof that a human could face conditions that would destroy most other species and remain upright, focused, and unbroken. The commander stepped closer to Aaron. Rest for now. The next test will challenge more than strength and endurance. It will challenge your mind and your strategy. Prepare yourself. The station has never faced a human like you before, and we must learn from what you have shown. He stepped back from the center of the fractured floor, muscles still trembling from the previous test, but steady. Around him, the trainees whispered and watched. The instructors murmured among themselves. Even Halvek's confidence was shaken. The human from Earth had earned respect, not through words, not through boasting, but through action. Strength, control, endurance, and calm focus had spoken louder than anything else. The station had taken notice. The commander had taken notice. The other trainees had taken notice. Aaron had survived extreme gravity, lifted impossible weights, and controlled his movements perfectly under conditions no being should endure. He had left cracks in the floor as silent testimony to his abilities. He had demonstrated the value of human resilience and discipline. Now, he would rest. He would recover, and soon he would face the next test, prepared to show once again that humans could endure, adapt, and overcome challenges that others believed impossible. The station itself seemed to acknowledge what had occurred. The fractured floor, the dust in the air, the stillness of the hall, all bore witness to a human who had defied expectations, who had endured where others had failed, and who had earned respect through nothing more than skill, focus, and the unyielding strength of Earth's gravity-born warriors. Aaron took a deep breath, steadying himself. The next stage awaited. The station had recognized him. The trainees had recognized him. Even Halvek begrudgingly had recognized him. Humans were no longer to be underestimated, no longer to be mocked, and certainly no longer to be dismissed. The hall prepared for the next test. Gravity fields shifted subtly, machinery hummed with anticipation, and the instructors exchanged cautious glances. Aaron remained calm, muscles tense, eyes focused. He had survived. He had proven. And soon he would show that humans were capable of far more than the galaxy had ever imagined. The final demonstration hall was massive, filled with observers from every corner of the station. Species of all shapes and sizes crowded the platforms above, floating in the low gravity or standing on reinforced panels. They had come to see the human who had broken expectations, damaged the training floor, and survived pressures that no other being could endure. The air was tense with anticipation, whispers running like currents through the crowd. Aaron stood at the center of the hall. His muscles were still sore from the previous tests. Sweat dried on his skin, but his posture was calm, his eyes steady. The fractured floor beneath him was a reminder of everything he had accomplished so far. Every crack and chip told the story of endurance, control, and unyielding strength. Today he would show that humans were not only survivors, but also warriors capable of mastering challenges the station had never imagined. Instructor Halvek watched him from the edge of the hall, his arms folded tightly. His expression was a mixture of frustration, disbelief, and grudging respect. He had tried to humiliate the human, to show the trainees the weakness of Earthborn beings. Instead, Aaron had proven beyond doubt that humans could endure and adapt in ways the station had never considered. The station commander stepped forward, his armored presence commanding silence. "This demonstration is for all observers," he said, voice calm and firm. "The human from Earth has already proven strength and endurance under impossible conditions. Today we will see how he performs in a challenge that tests mind, body, and strategy simultaneously. Let this be a lesson to all species here. Adaptability is as important as power." Aaron nodded slightly. He had expected this. He did not need to speak. His focus was already on the task ahead. The challenge would involve moving through the hall under shifting gravity, dodging obstacles, lifting heavy weights, and solving problems designed to test both strength and strategy. Every step, every movement would require focus, control, and endurance. The gravity systems activated first. The field fluctuated subtly, making the floor tilt slightly under pressure. Panels shifted, forcing Aaron to adjust his stance constantly. The hall was designed to test coordination and balance under extreme conditions. Most species would struggle, even with specialized adaptations. Humans were not considered capable of this level of agility and adaptation, but Aaron had spent his life under Earth gravity, walking, running, lifting, and enduring. His body knew balance and strength, and his mind understood focus and control. The first obstacles appeared, heavy blocks designed to topple under sudden gravity surges. Aaron adjusted his stance and pushed through, lifting the blocks one by one, moving them with precision to clear the path. His body moved in perfect harmony with the changing gravity, adjusting force and angle with each step. Observers gasped as they watched a human perform tasks that were supposed to require multiple specialized species working together. Halvek muttered under his breath, "How is this possible? No human should perform like this." The station commander did not comment, only observing, eyes sharp, analyzing every movement. Other instructors whispered among themselves, noting each adjustment Aaron made, each calculation his body seemed to perform instinctively. Next, a series of panels tilted violently, some rising under force, others sinking, creating uneven surfaces that required immediate adjustment. Aaron leapt over gaps, crouched under sliding barriers, and shifted weights smoothly to avoid losing balance. Every move was deliberate, precise, and efficient. Where others would falter or stumble, he flowed like water over obstacles, using his strength and control to adapt instantly. One of the assistant instructors whispered, "He's reading the gravity. He's predicting the movement before it happens."
Yes, another replied. He's not just reacting.
He's controlling his body like it's part of the station itself. Heavy weights then fell in designated zones, time to test both reaction and strength. Aaron lifted them easily, placing each in its target area, moving on without hesitation. Each weight was heavier than any human was expected to lift under normal conditions, yet he adjusted perfectly, distributing force efficiently, using leverage, and moving with fluid control. Observers in the upper platforms leaned forward, some whispering, some unable to hide awe. The human was performing feats no one thought possible. Strength, strategy, endurance, and balance were combined in perfect harmony. Halvek's frustration grew. He had designed these exercises to expose weaknesses, to prove that humans could not match the station's elite species. Every step Aaron took, every weight lifted, every panel navigated proved the opposite. He had underestimated the adaptability, focus, and strength that humans developed under unyielding Earth gravity. Suddenly, the gravity field shifted drastically, tilting the floor at impossible angles. Panels lifted and sank, creating gaps, slopes, and obstacles that would make even the most agile species stumble. Observers gasped. Many would have fallen immediately. Aaron paused for a brief moment, calculating the shifts in his mind. He adjusted his stance, planted his feet, and moved with careful precision. He leapt across a widening gap, landed smoothly, and continued forward. Every step was deliberate, each movement controlled. The heavy weights he carried did not hinder him. Instead, he used them as leverage to maintain balance and momentum. A crowd of alien trainees whispered nervously. "No one else can do this," one said. He is rewriting what a human, or any species, can achieve.
Alvek clenched his fists. Alvek clenched his fists.
It cannot continue, he muttered. It is impossible for any species to endure this perfectly. Aaron ignored the whispers, ignored the doubts. His mind focused entirely on the task. He moved faster, more fluidly, adjusting to every change in gravity, every tilt of the panels, every obstacle. His body was a machine honed by Earth gravity, endurance, and hard labor, able to survive and adapt under pressure no species expected him to withstand. The final obstacle appeared, a heavy platform suspended above the floor, swinging like a pendulum under the fluctuating gravity field. Most species would have been crushed or thrown off balance. Aaron timed his movements perfectly. He crouched low, waited for the swing to pass, then sprinted forward, leapt, and used the momentum to vault onto the platform. He landed with perfect balance, arms steady, muscles taut, control precise. Observers gasped audibly. The human from Earth had not only survived every test, he had mastered them. He had used strength, endurance, strategy, and balance to overcome challenges designed for multiple species working together. Halvek's expression was pale. He had failed to humiliate the human. He had failed to prove weakness. Instead, he had witnessed something extraordinary. A human dominating a test no one thought possible. The station commander stepped forward, raising his voice. All observers, take note. The human from Earth has demonstrated strength, endurance, strategy, and control beyond what this station believed possible. Humans are not weak. Humans are capable of surviving and excelling under conditions that would destroy others. Let this demonstration be recorded for all species.
Let it be remembered. Aaron stepped down from the final platform, muscles tense but steady.
His breathing was calm, controlled. The fractured floor beneath him was a testament to his journey. The cracks glimmered under the lights, evidence of strength and endurance that no one could deny. The observers erupted into quiet applause, murmurs of awe spreading across the hall. Even the most skeptical trainees could not deny what they had seen. A human had not only survived impossible conditions but had dominated them, proving that Earth-born beings were formidable, adaptable, and resilient. Halvek's jaw was tight, his face pale. He had trained, studied, and designed these tests for decades, yet none of it mattered against the human's endurance, control, and focus. He stepped back, silent, as the commander approached Aaron. "You have proven more than strength or endurance," the commander said. "You have proven adaptability, focus, and the ability to master challenges no one else could. Your actions will influence training protocols, not just for humans but for all species. The station has learned something important today. Humans cannot be underestimated." Aaron nodded slightly, his body still tense but calm. He had not sought glory, only to endure, to survive, and to show the truth of human resilience. The trainees around him whispered, eyes wide. Many approached slowly, wanting to learn, to observe, to understand the human who had broken expectations and redefined what was possible. Halvek muttered quietly, "A human of all things. To dominate every test, to control every movement, to survive where others fail. Impossible." The commander smiled faintly. "Not impossible. Humans are forged under gravity, endurance, and hardship. They adapt, they survive, and they overcome. Today, a human has shown the galaxy what that truly means." Aaron allowed himself a small nod of acknowledgement. He had proven what he came to show. The floor was cracked, the weights moved, the obstacles mastered. Every observer had seen the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not fragile. Humans were capable of survival and mastery beyond expectation. The hall fell into quiet admiration. The fractured floor, the dust in the air, the floating fragments, and the tension in every observer's eyes were all proof. A human from Earth had endured the impossible, dominated the demonstration, and earned respect across the station. Aaron's eyes were calm. His body was ready. His mind was clear. The station had learned the truth. Earth gravity did not break humans. It forged them, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The demonstration was over, but its impact would echo through the station forever. Humans were no longer seen as weak newcomers. They were survivors, warriors, and a species to be respected. Aaron stepped down from the final platform, steady, controlled, and unbroken. The fractured floor glimmered under the lights, silent testament to strength, endurance, and human resilience. Around him, the crowd of trainees and instructors acknowledged his achievement. The commander nodded in approval. Halvek remained silent, defeated in thought, but alive with a new understanding. The human from Earth had left his mark, on the station, on the floor, and on every observer's mind. He had proven beyond doubt that survival, endurance, and mastery were not determined by size, species, or biology alone, but by will, discipline, and the unyielding strength that came from being human. And in that moment, the galaxy learned something new. Earth-born humans were not just survivors, they were a force to be reckoned with.